Hello my fellow Ghoul Renegade, and welcome back to a brand new video of Ghoulish Reacts. And welcome back once again to Day 3 of Iris Week. Now we're going to be continuing where we left off last time from the story of Vegala. To pretty much recap the end of the last episode, Father Tyrant finally met Lady Fate, and they concocted a plan together to break into Vegala Infinity's castle walls and steal the all-knowing archival that we know as the Iris from the three deities, Hithistras, Yondrathadicus, and Wandramite. Well, at the last episode that we saw, Father Tyrant and Lady Fate end up getting captured by the three deities, and it turns out that Lady Fate was working with them the entire time to take down Tyrant. But she also, too, got captured because she revealed that she was working with Tyrant to steal the Iris. So she, too, also was deceived. And so now Father Tyrant and Lady Faith are both prisoners of the three deities of Vegala Infinity as of this moment. So now we are continuing with our first video of today, Chapter 8, The Castle That Never Dies. Ooh. Look at this.
Though locked in tombs once lived by the carcasses of previous Vegalian traitors, their demise was far from over. The entire of Vegala Infinity was called to alarms and distresses. It was the chime of the emperors. They would talk among the lessers, and with them the two cages containing Tyrant and Fate. All present were beholden to the powers above them, as they would proclaim of the traitors not once but twice, trying to smite not only their own colony, but all of Vegalian kind. Before the gauntlet of punishment was...
See, that's a cult move. You can tell these three dudes, they're obviously just... they're power hungry. And they've let the power get to their head, and they're just like, okay, two of you betrayed us. Who's not to say that the rest of you will betray us as well? So you know what? We're just going to destroy all of you. Yeah, that's not the right way to go about things. That's never the right thing. It's like, really, one person does something wrong, and so you have to go after everybody? No, just... the simpler choice would be just punish the two people that actually did something. You don't have to go after everybody else, but I can see, like, to maintain control in a situation like that, to maintain what they believe is their control. Sure, I think it's in their mind it'd be better to punish everybody else, but that's not always the case. There's always alternatives. There's always other ways to do things.
Was to begin, however. The traitors were given one last chance to plead their words to those they turned their backs on. They would both quiver uncontrollably before laying their reasons on the ground.
Okay.
They would tell the people that they had been lied to by the deities, that there were many more truths to these lands. Planets have died and revived, and a new planet was created to simply be executed. They had felt Vegala needed to know before laying down their undeniable allegiance to whom they have shrined for so very long. This brings the citizens to a haunting silence as they look upon one another. But before they could think too long, the deities chuckled, chortled, erupted into a roar of laughter. They would speak to their people that Tyrant and Fate are about to be the cause of a deadly awakening to the innocent citizens of Vegala. They beckon that, as easy as something is to give, something can be taken away.
Oh, no.
And it would be at the fault of the betrayers for what would happen next. It is with this that Hithistras, Yondrathadicus, and Wandramite raise their hands. Demonic and deadly waves of energy forged into destructive fireballs. And just like that, they take aim at their land's sacred castle that contained their holiest Bible of knowledge. It was a sanctuary for all of Vegala to feel safety and comfort, to unite one another in a noble cause, holding the Vegalian Bible, which kept people protected, keeping a community of warriors alive and connected as one. But while their connection was strong, it is in this horrific and ghastly day of carnage, their unity was about to be tested. The fireballs crash into the castle. Foundations and bricks crumble to the ground. Flames surrounding the city, Vegalian people crying in agony as their beloved shrine falls into ashes and dust.
Whoa.
Their castle had been destroyed.
Dang. So the deities, they just destroy the castle containing their book, their Bible, like as they put it. That actually makes a lot more sense, honestly, because Will, when he was writing Goliath's Throne, he had an unused song for the deluxe version called Bind the Bible. And that whole song talks about unity, bringing people together. And that's pretty much the meaning of the song. It's time to, I think one of the lyrics is time to wipe away the tears, wipe away the blood. And it's a unifying song, even though some people could view it as like him talking about like the real Bible. But I think in all honesty, like how you write it, it doesn't really matter. But he uses the word bind, and bind usually means in definition to hold it close to, hold it close to you. Like use it to bring everyone together. And now in the context of the story of Vegala, that song actually makes a lot more sense. Whether it be the real life, a real life interpretation or even just story interpretation, I feel the song makes a lot more sense now that the Vegalian people had a book containing all their knowledge that wasn't just the iris, essentially. Which I find pretty interesting.
Ashes to ashes, this once proud temple of hope and prosperity became a desolate grave. The deities had let Tyrant and Fate out of their cages to be used as hunted prey. But the people of Vegala were too horrified, weakened by the lustful vengeance from power-hungry emperors. All they could do was sit and cradle one another.
Yeah, I wonder how that plan worked out. It's like, here, hunt these guys, it's their fault. And everyone's like, we're too sad, we don't want to. You see, it's certainly not the outcome they were probably expecting, but hey, it happens.
Families huddling up to be shoulders to cry on. Vegala weeps. But as one tear falls, so does the weight of what it carried. Tyrant stood with his people and chanted a harrowing and powerful speech before those brought to their knees.
Do you see, finally? Have your eyes brung themselves to attention?
Oh, this is
Look
the
at
new
what they
voice
did
actor
to our shrine.
For Tyrant. Okay.
Our people, beaten down and annihilated by who we're supposed to glorify. They have greater power to take more away from us, so long as we step out of line.
Mm-hmm.
Whose line is it to own? What order does this bring? It only tells us we were itemized and tied to the inanimate. But look inward. Look towards your others. There are no lessers here. We don't see lesser. When we stop staring at the castle that bound us, you realize we were the castle. And this is one castle that will never die. We can rebuild. We can repopulate just as quick as we can burn down. But we can never die. It's time we took back what is ours and rebel against the darkest monstrosity that plagues us all.
I just want to look at the art for a minute. Oh, wow, that's what Tyrant's supposed to look like? Oh, that's kind of cool. He's human. Okay. Honestly, not what I expected. I didn't expect for a lot of the characters in Iris to be human. I mean, I kind of envisioned, Tyrant to look somewhat like Goliath, in a way. Like, not before he exploded, but like kind of like skeletal-ish, because they were on the depths. I figured like, because they're like aliens on, in a way, like different planets, different systems, different worlds, that they'd be like more alien-like. But to see that they're human, that actually, in a way, I guess it kind of makes sense. Tyrant looks kind of cool. I like his design.
You can either die along with the castle, or you can live as if it was never buried.
Mm-hmm.
Silence fills the air. and before all hope seemed to fade, more and more Vegalians would stand up, proudly, boldly, one by one would rise from the corpse of their garden, reborn, resurrected, and reunited.
I like what Will did there.
A loud cheer fills the air. Vegala was no longer bound by a shrine. Vegala was the castle that could never die.
That's cool. I like that one. I like the ending of that. And there is an interesting lesson to kind of be learned by that song. Now, I don't mean to bring up, like, you know, like, biblical stuff, and I don't mean to, like, reference it in my videos or all that often. Really, it's just, like, certain things just kind of stick out to me, and I usually have, like, something like a little biblical that kind of ties to that. But it's kind of like in the Bible how Jesus mentions that the church is never a building, but it's not usually the building that you sit in to worship and pray, but it's usually the people, it's the congregation that makes the church the church. And I guess the same could be said with the castle that never dies. It's not the building that makes it the castle, it's all of the people that make it the castle. I just find that really interesting. I just like to connect certain parallels to certain things. I'm not saying Will is going down that route. I'm not saying Will wrote that as an intentional thing for someone like me to point out. But I'm just saying that I like certain parallels to certain things. And I just found that kind of interesting, like in the way of like how he wrote it and how it seems so similar to something else that I've personally read. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. The second video we will be reacting to today is Chapter 9, You're Just Making Us Stronger.
With the revolt of Vegalian people against Almighties, the deities turn to see their people become an army, and more so, an enemy. They were all mocked as traitors, disposable and rebuildable. It's not like they haven't built before, so they can build again. Their lives are supposedly immortal. But this did not stop the tenacity of the Vegalian people, as one foul swoop from their forces took full charge into their rulers, causing a war of paramount size.
Wow.
People willing to sacrifice their own kind for battle, for revolution, for a brand new resurrection.
He did it again.
Each colony, Crimson, Velveta, Trojan Magnus, Philippices.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to hit that. I just want to look at the symbols. Okay, so the first one's Crimson, the second one is Velveta, the third one's Trojan Magnus, and the fourth one is Philippices. Now, Trojan Magnus, that one is interesting. And the reason why I say that one is interesting most of all is because in Goliath's throne, they bring up a virus known as the Trojan, and it's something that Goliath spreads to the world. Now, Will, in his backstory for Goliath's throne at that current time, he explains that the Trojan virus was a thing that makes everybody angry. Kind of like the same plague that happens in Dawn of the Demetrix, but it's unconfirmed whether those two things are the same thing. But that's why I'm pointing out Trojan Magnus, because it seems interesting to me that maybe somewhere down the line, maybe Goliath met one of these Trojan Magnus people and learned of a chemical, and he decided to name it after, you know, the tribe that he met, called the Trojan. And so when he made the Trojan virus, you know, hence the name, and did what he did in the events of Goliath's throne, it's just kind of interesting to think about it that way.
To name a few, did not speak as much volume as the battlefield that beheld. The deities were cornered, distracted enough for Tyrant and Fate to make their most daring mission of all come to life. They storm towards the castle doors, and make their way through as they locked tightly. There was but one thing Tyrant had not bargained on, however. It was one debacle being capable of entering the Iris's tomb. It was another to retrieve it. They had no resource and no means to conquer their mission. That is until Lady Fate reveals yet another deceptive and masterful contingency she concocted. Underneath her veil, she uncovers the sacred Vegalian Bible.
Oh, she took
one
it.
thought to have been burned along with the castle. She fell back in her groups not by mere accident, but to signal Tyrant. It so happens that Lady Fate knew the deities were planning to use her all along, and after overhearing their discussions of capturing Tyrant and using the castle as their pawn in their plans, she had been caught red-handed. Instead of punishing her on the spot, they used her to take down Tyrant, who they believed could still not be trusted, and the castle all in one. And so she had retrieved the Bible all for herself long ago, by manipulating the guards with her bestowed new privilege given by the Mad Emperors to protect it from sight.
Here's the funny thing about that. They gave her, the deities of Vegala Infinity, gave her the privilege to protect the Vegalian Bible, to keep it out of sight. They still burnt the castle. And they didn't think to remember that she had it all along. Like, they told her to protect it. It's like, what kind of beings are these? Like, aren't they supposed to be technically timekeepers? Aren't they supposed to be as all-knowing as the Iris is? Like, obviously, because they own this whole kingdom, like, they would use the Iris's all-knowing archival to see into the future and be like, oh, she's gonna take this from us. Maybe we should stop her at some point in time. But no, they decided not to do that. That's funny to me. Like, you think the beings who were supposed to be all-knowing, they're not. It just doesn't make sense. In a way, it doesn't make sense, but I guess it kind of does. They just forgot about it. They're just like, oh, it should be fine. We'll be good.
What this meant was to be seen in due course, but they had to hurry. The deities were outnumbered by Vegala Infinity's citizens.
Oh, okay, well that's probably the other reason why they don't remember.
They would try to devour. They would try to empower. But in the end, this only made the army against them stronger than they'd ever known.
Okay. Alright, that last line actually does make a lot of sense. So it wouldn't be technically on their mind if they're being overpowered by like thousands and thousands of citizens. The third video we will be reacting to today is Chapter 10, Heart of an Artist.
After tremendous amounts of strength and perseverance, rigorous trials and many sacrifices, they had finally entered the tomb of the Iris. It felt rather underwhelming to see it in all of its whimsy and foretelling. It was but a mere golden rock, floating in a coated protection concocted by several layerings of Velveta veiling.
Oh, that's interesting. So the Iris never looked like what it does now. Huh, interesting. It was a golden rock. Oh, so basically the Iris is a glorified chicken nugget. That's what it is. It's a golden chicken nugget floating in space. I'm sorry, I don't mean I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm really not. I mean, I like the story. I do. I just find that funny. It was a mere golden rock. Oh, it looks like a giant chicken nugget floating through space. Okay, makes sense.
Of course, this explains the deity's choosing. They did not admire Fate for who she was, but more for what she possessed. Shimmering gloriously, though, it was a majesty to behold. Lady Fate uncovers the Bible. This book could only be understood by Vegalians, a language not decipherable by other mortals, wrapped through the Vegala galaxy.
Ah, so to understand this book, you have to be of the Vegalian descendants, or at least from Vegala Infinity. So if you're someone else within the galaxy and you find this thing and open it up, you ain't gonna be able to understand nothing.
She grasps Tyrant's hand, asking him to join her. As they read along, tears would be shed. For what they discovered would be the most impacting revelation of a lifetime.
Okay. Ooh.
Thy unholiest became to be. Sacred sanctity we must retrieve. amongst the cradle of Primus we desire. Through plummeting darkness, we crave fire. We ask for destiny to whisk away grace, to retreat from the sins it once faced. Bring with it protection, let it soar like thunder, through eternal darkness, left to slumber. Wash away the blood caused by those who hungered, and guide us on this journey through eternity's plunder. Hither and yonder, be ready for wonder.
Tears drop from their eyes and land on the pages. Suddenly, the book emits a bright glow, and as it appears, so does the iris. It thaws away piece by piece until it retains a brand new shape.
There it is.
Could it be that the iris has finally taken form? Another secret kept from Vegala, now revealed to the ones who sought for the truth they desired. Tyrant and Fate stare at each other before holding the book together. They nod, and the Bible is slammed shut.
Ooh.
This summons a wave of energy through the room, and the iris is now free. While no longer immobile, scorches shroud the archival of knowledge, becoming madder by the second until powerful enough to jump light speed outside of the castle walls and into the darkest corners of space.
Vegala Zero. Nice.
But all was not to be a happy ending. Vegala Infinity's ground begun to shake,
The cradle
crumble,
Primus. It's
now
blowing up.
becoming unstable, with the revelation of the iris being the very thing containing Vegala's grasp within the realm of Hitherfall, and once leaving the proximity of the cradle Primus, it would cause calamity and destruction on Infinity. Nothing could stop what was once known as Cradle Primus from destabilizing, as it transforms into a seismic boulder of darkness and chaotic ripples. It is no longer alive.
Ah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So the iris was the only thing that was keeping the Cradle Primus stabilized. So once that thing left, phew, it's time for this thing to go kaboom.
As it becomes a dark vortex, swallowing all in the vicinity of Vegala Infinity.
Dang.
The walls started to cave in, grounds being sucked into a central black hole. Tyrant and Fate made a strong leap of faith and retreated before the jaws of Vegala's gates could shut completely. Their home was no more. It had been sent to the realm on the other side, Yondrathal. There was...
So it teleported it to the other side. The side of the living. Huh. Interesting. Now, this event right here, I cannot say it now because this comes back in the Valentine Renegade arc, at the very end of the arc. And this explained a video that I was confused about for a very long time in the Valentine Renegade arc. I can't say it. I don't want to spoil it for you guys because you guys don't know the story like I do. But this explains a certain event that happens in that arc. That's interesting.
No turning back now. And the two would soar through the vapidness of nothing in hot pursuit of the iris.
Ah! Okay, so once they left Vegala Infinity, they just kind of floated through space, looking for the iris. Okay, that's interesting.
The heart of an artist was from the sacred Bible that bound people together, forged and driven by communities. This was to be the end of Vegala's story as we know it.
Okay.
The heart was the iris, and the artists were those capable of beholding its power, unlocking its true potential. One day, revealing the truth kept from so many lives. Art never truly ends. It is we who decide when it ends. For Tyrant and Fate, they had destined this capsule of wisdom to be shared forever. Or At least that's what the artist wanted you to believe.
Oh, Will's being a little deceptive with his writing here. Okay, he's leading us on, essentially. He's leading us on just a little bit further. So he's leaving certain things open-ended. So he wrapped everything up, but he's leaving us an open-ended conclusion of what all of this really means. Now, of course, I believe all the events that happened, of course. But the meaning of Heart of an Artist, it's not closed yet. I think that's what they're talking about. Okay, let's move on to our final video. The fourth and final video we will be reacting to today is Epilogue, Ascending from the Iris. So after this point, the story of Vegala will officially be over and we will have finished the Vegala arc. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. Oh, one thing I would like to mention, in the beginning of Story of Vegala, Tyrant struck his hand down on Goliath's head and sent him through all these memories, so I'm assuming this epilogue is the point where Goliath comes out of those memories.
When one story ends, so does another unfold. Goliath is released from the grasp of Tyrant's hands, and consciously returns to the depths. What felt like mere seconds in the depths felt like an entire lifespan for most others. He had unearthed knowledge, feelings, the numbing and scarring hums of warfare, despair, and anarchy. Goliath was indeed convinced from this point on to remain by the encrypt, weakening his fist, hunching his head.
My boy, no.
What came of the visions was to paralyze him in more ways one could imagine. He sits down by the encrypt's fortitude and slumps into a state of disassociation and disbelief.
Dang.
This was not his pain to bear, but was cast onto him by a perspective from his own father. Tyrant is glad he finally understands. And after wishing him a fond farewell until they meet again for great battles, he leaves for the Purgaprime Castle. Goliath was to be left alone for many a century, until he is summoned to fight and protect again. An anomaly of parasitic brutality to others, was just a mere being like everyone else who was cast out solely for the power he wielded. It is a punishment that feels unjust, and many a day was spent questioning why he remains, until the thoughts came back to haunt him. A fatal gaslight that would force Goliath to believe something that wasn't entirely telling the whole truth. The artist who beheld the sacred archival of knowledge would suffer the same greeds its creators contained.
Oh.
A time will come of Goliath to understand this one day. The truth would always prevail without words. Such is the day he finally ascended from the Iris.
That's cool at the end. I like how Will kind of did all of that, and he literally did a descension and ascension, because when Heart of an Artist originally came out, there was a lot of speculation towards the story, towards the meaning. Now, the way Will explained it in one of his rundown video, he explained it that it was a person going through many different reflections of their life. So like a metaphorical dissension and ascension from the Iris, essentially. But now, the way that he's written the story, now he's made it literally happen. It's literally a descension and ascension from said memories. Well, there's still more to this video. Okay. So, I like how Will hints at that Goliath feels that what he was shown, what he was told, may not entirely be the full truth, and that there's something that Tyrant is hiding, but we do not know exactly what yet. But I guess we're going to find out. Ooh.
My boy, how I wish your fate had come to pass. It still pains me deep to think about what had to be done. Born unholiest. Living to protect. To die by duty. He cannot know he is guarding his own surrogate hive mind beast.
What?
But if he was to know that much, it may break him.
Oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. That why Goliath has to guard the Encrypt, and not only to protect whatever else is in there other than the Motho Hive, but solely to protect the Motho Hive. So they never told... Oh, I get it. It makes so much sense. So Tyrant and Fate never told Goliath that he was born from the Motho Hive. And if Goliath ever realized he was, that could have disastrous consequences. Okay, so I get it from Tyrant's perspective. Now, I will say, I can say this, because it's really not much of a spoiler, but Will does reveal during Dawn of the Demetrix that Goliath does eventually merge with something and becomes a different form of himself. In the story arc of Goliath's Throne, because Goliath's Throne isn't a story arc in the videos yet. It's only been up to the point of Dawn of the Demetrix, unfortunately. But I think Will's going to circle back to Goliath's Throne eventually, make story videos for that, because we still don't know the full story of that, in essence. But at the end of Dawn of the Demetrix, Goliath, he later gains these snakes known as the Ether Snakes, and they're like his little companions, like his pets, and they're with him at all times. They're like on his back, essentially. And at the end of Dawn of Demetrix, when he goes into a war on the planet Nidoria in the realm of Yondrathal, the main villain, one of the main villains, Abram Valentine, when he goes into a war with him, Goliath merges with his Ether Snakes, and I don't know if it's through the use of dark matter or just through the use of ether itself, but he merges with the Ether Snakes and becomes something called Serpentine Goliath, and then he is later captured by Abram. Now, I wouldn't say that's much of a spoiler alert, because that event is not necessarily shown, but more so implied through the album and also through the story videos that we do get in Dawn of the Demetrix, because Abram calls Goliath a wretched monstrosity. And the only thing the other calls Goliath is you. That's about it. But that's interesting that Tyrant fears that Goliath will merge with the Motho Hive. Even though I feel that maybe Goliath doesn't merge with the Motho Hive, he just merges with his snakes in the end. But he does become more powerful because of it, hence why Abram locks him away. But let's continue.
He may very well tear down the walls that protect not only him, but the world he steps upon.
Interesting.
Against the Motho Hive's sworn legacy, to engulf our planet whole.
Maybe even the universe.
Was it cruel?
Probably, a little bit.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But was it crueler for him to know? Maybe selfish.
Most likely.
It is why I entrust you, the Iris Archival. Lock this secret to your grave. Dare he find out, and he could become uncontrollable. I love my son, more than anything, but I want him pure. I can't bear to imagine what fate Goliath would suffer if merging with the beast. I fear the Motho Hive will manifest its darkest clutches and convert him.
That is possible. That is true.
He can already thwart the damned off of his own back.
Fair enough.
I couldn't bear to see my boy engulf planets, too.
He is pretty strong.
It does, however, feel ironic.
Oh, how so?
I fought against the cover-ups of truth, hidden by our sacred deities.
And now you're doing the same.
And now, all I'm doing is hiding more truth.
Yep, there's the irony.
But if this truth was to become realized, it would spell the end for many of us.
Yeah, it could.
And we simply can't turn back now.
Nope.
My boy. Oh, how I wish your fate hadn't come to pass.
Alright, and then this is where the album gets announced. Again, the release date at least, which is coming this week. So excited, by the way. Well, guys, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today for this video. So please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications for when I upload new videos. And make sure to follow my social media links down in the description below to join the Ghoul Renegade. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!